Good morning. Today is Saturday, April 20th, 2024, and this is What's Happening Dracut. Welcome to our 63rd episode, and thank you for joining us today. This is the place where you will find more information about what's going on in Dracut and the surrounding area than any other news outlet. We're going to give you a different perspective of all the issues of the day and hopefully enlighten you to be able to make informed decisions in elections and what's going on in town here. What's Happening Dracut is coming to you live from our overly ostentatious studios here at DATV, located on Mill Street in Dracut. We are also live on Facebook, and I'm your host, John Zimini, and I have a plethora of other hosts with me today, the co-hosts of extraordinaires, and the number one guy we have here is Dracut's own astute man on zoning. He knows all about architecture. He's a great community activist. And Phil Thibault's in the house today.
Hey.
How are you, Phil?
I'm well, thank you. Yourself?
Phil's a resident host here, and we get
local roustabout, as I like to say.
Right. He's in the same plateau as many of us on this show, where it comes with some of the powers that be here in town and in the surrounding area. So what's going on in your life today?
It's it's been a school week vacation, but it's been very busy. So I'm looking forward to a little break on a Saturday, and then of course we have the show, and just looking forward to keep going.
Yeah, and then we have with us our Teflon Don of Dracut Access Television. He's the most well-liked guy of all of us, and everybody in town likes him because he's into basketball with the kids. But he kind of floats around and does some stuff, and then he drops bombs like I can't even imagine. But he still is the Teflon Don of DATV. Gordy Scott, how are you, Gordy?
John, how are things? I told people I did the pregame today, and I let everyone know we got a great show. So make sure you're tuning in. Don't turn the channel.
No, how's Mrs. doing?
She's doing well. She's watching right now. So
good, Jennifer. I'm going to tweak him a little bit today to try to get him on the edge. All right, is that okay? No, I'm sure she says, like my wife, she says, please.
Yep.
Don't get us sued.
Right, exactly.
Hey, you can't sue if the truth is out there.
No, but things are good. Work's going good. I got some projects due around the house. I'm putting in a new patio. I have an existing patio, so I'm replacing the bricks. They're getting old, 25 years. It's about time. So, but yeah, just keeping busy.
You're doing it yourself?
Yep, doing it myself.
I have a couple projects I can have you come over to my house
and
start doing. We also have with us a special guest, candidate for Registrar of Deeds here in Middlesex County, and that's Karen Casella, and we'll be with her in a minute. Hi, Karen. How are you today?
I'm good, John. Thank you.
We'll get to introduce you in a minute, but absolutely. I just wanted to move on to the next thing. We want to let you know that any information you need, give us a call. You can call us today on our hotline here if you want to join in on the information. We'll get Mike to put up the chyron that says what the telephone number is. It's 978-957-4243. You know, I'm getting a little old. I've got that Joe Biden syndrome a little bit coming on to me.
Do you have an uncle that was eaten by cannibals?
Yeah, Uncle Bozy. Uncle Bozy was eaten by cannibals. You're right. Good for you. Of course, we got a guest in the studio here that's watching it right now. He's squirming in his seat because he's making up. I love it. That's what we're all about here. You can join us live on Facebook if you're not already doing that, but you can also get us on DracutTelevision.org, and we're live streaming on the internet as well as currently on Channel 8. Gordy, tell us a little bit about what we do with the YouTube.
Yes, so for those of you that want to watch it on your smart TV at home, we'll post this episode to YouTube the next day, so you can watch us anytime, anywhere, from your cell phone, from your TV, what have you, and keep up with all things Dracut with our show on YouTube. And that's at What's Happening Dracut.
Yeah, and on Facebook, if you go on to Facebook, please like us, please follow us. We're approaching 3,600 followers on, we've got about 30 to go. If we get to 30 numbers over the next couple of days, maybe we'll reach it today. Because Karen's here, maybe we'll get some people to throw on there that they're following us, and we'll get up to 3,600 people. And that's it for that one. There you go. And if you have any questions, again, please call us. You can email us.
Or comment on Facebook, and we'll keep an eye
Comment
on
on
the
Facebook during the show. We keep that going. Are we on there, by the way?
Yes, we are.
Okay, I didn't put us up. Let's see what happens. Where are we live? I don't see us on there, but I'll see it in a minute. When somebody else is talking, I'll try to get it on there. Anyways, what do we have coming up, Phil, in local activities here?
Locally, early voting starts next Saturday, the 27th.
Right.
And that'll go for about a week, and then the election day itself, May 4th, will be the week after that.
So how does somebody do that now? They just go down to town hall?
Go down to town hall. The clerk typically has set up the selectman chamber for voting. So it's a matter of, it's just like if you were going to a regular precinct, you'd go and vote. And
There's no request in advance to do it. You just show up.
That's correct. That's correct.
So when you walk in there, you get say you're going to be away for that day, or you think you might be doing something else that you need to do. So get down there and I'm just fixing my tie here. Get down there and vote. Bank your vote, right? So, and that's coming up in just several days, and we'll advertise that during the next couple of weeks. And election day is on what? May 4th.
May 4th, a Saturday.
That's a Saturday, so it's typically on a Monday, right?
Well, years ago it was Monday, and then it got jostled around a bit, both because of COVID and trying to get more people to vote. That's always been a problem and a goal to get more participation.
Sure. So there's also a candidates forum coming up, correct?
That is correct. That is the
Thursday.
25th, Thursday the 25th.
Right.
I'm not sure the number, but it is Thursday
Okay.
at the American Legion.
We do have, we posted that information on our Facebook page. Maybe Gordy can pull it up if he wants to.
And that's being sponsored by CARD, Citizens Against Reckless Development.
Okay, and all of the candidates will be there for that forum.
Yeah, so that's not, from my understanding, not so much a debate, but more of a meet and greet. So candidates will be able to mingle with citizens and
If you have personal questions you want to ask
personal
them.
questions, ask them one-on-one.
I spoke with Michelle Baumeister, is it?
Baumeister,
And she says that they have had a plethora of questions coming in, and that they're going to ask the candidates to interact with the whole audience, but by questions. I guess they are going to have some sort of a moderator.
That's a great
That'd
format,
be
by
good.
the way. I like
Yeah,
it.
it's more like a Lincoln Douglas. You can answer each other
Right,
and
right.
do your thing. I think it's a good format. So later on in the show, we have Josh Taylor coming on with Tony Archinsky, and then we'll talk town issues. But right now, we have with us our resident weatherman didn't show up today because he's working.
He's
his
feeling a
regular
little
job.
under the weather.
He's feeling, but Gordy Scott is going to go over the weather forecast that he has provided for us. So if Michael put that up right now, we'll see what it is. There you go. Gordy.
All right, here's our 8-day forecast for Merrimack Valley weather. Today is Saturday. The rain's gonna taper off here early afternoon, and then clear up for this afternoon. So if you have anything you need to do in this afternoon, it should be nice and sunny. And then it's gonna rain a little bit, I think, tonight into Sunday morning. You can see here the rest of the week looks pretty good, except for Thursday. It's gonna be sunny, but only a high of 49. So I don't like that too much, but. Looks like we're not going to have to water the lawn much, though. We're going to have some rain throughout the week. So that's our 8-day forecast.
Brought to you by
Mill City.
Mill City Weather.
There you go. We look forward to having Josh back next
Sean.
week. I'm Sean.
Yeah.
Back next week. So we're going to move right along now. Is there any condolences or anything that we need? Any other announcements?
I would say luckily not for
Luckily.
condolences.
Yeah. So we're going to move on to the next segment with Karen Casella, and I'd like to say a few words about Karen. Karen currently works at the Registry of Deeds and has been there for a number of years, and we welcome you to the show.
Thank you so much, John.
How
Thank you,
is
Phil. Thank
everything
you for
going?
coming. Good, very good.
Campaign going well?
But very well. Yeah, no
Good.
complaints.
Good.
Yeah.
So why don't we have you give yourself a little introduction to the folks out here, and
All right.
that camera in the front is the one that we focus on. But then when you address the audience, you can look in the
Right.
camera too.
All right.
All right.
So, hi, Dracut. I'm Karen Casella, running for Register of Deeds. I have been in the office for 32 years. I have all the experience, hands-on, to work in that office, to lead that office, and to help all the customers out there. I grew up here I grew up in Lowell. I am married for 33 years to my husband, Jim Casella, a Lowell police officer. I have 4 children, and my children are now grown. I have 1 grandbaby.
Wow.
And I'm looking forward to getting out there and for this position. When you talk about the Registry of Deeds, it's a little bit different than most other offices. This position is a position where I can't change government policies. I can only help the people who use our office. So I have a lot of good changes that I want to, lead and take over and change and to help the people. That office is, it runs itself. We have a lot of great employees. So I look forward to meeting everyone and, if elected, making some really awesome changes that are going to help the whole community.
Have you ever run for office before?
I ran in 2018.
And how was that experience?
It was good. It was a little different. This one is, this is a lot better. I really, running against Richard Howe wasn't easy, but I decided to take that chance. So I'm moving forward, and this year seems really good. I have a lot of nice people that have been reaching out. And to be honest, we deal with legal documents, we really need to have someone that has that experience, that knows the job.
So tell us what sets you apart from your fellow candidates.
So what would set me apart from them is I'm the only candidate that has experience. These are legal documents that we take in, and we have to go by the operation of law with these documents. It's not something where you can have no experience. When a customer comes in, we deal with deeds, mortgages. You really have to know the standards that Middlesex provides, the land court guidelines. So there's just so much more to it than just come on in, drop your document, and we're going to accept it. We don't accept everything that someone brings in. So it's something that I have the knowledge, the experience to move forward and to help customers, where my opponents, they've never dealt with these documents. And again, I am a real estate agent. It's not on that end of real estate. What we bring in is more of the law of it. Attorneys create legal documents. So you have to have some type of experience with legal documentation. So we don't want to have any problems with titles. So.
Gordy?
Yeah, so I don't know if you've seen in the news lately, there's been a lot of issues with squatters in people's homes.
Oh, yeah.
Maybe not so much in Massachusetts, but throughout the country. Have you guys run into anything with deeds, with fraudulent deeds, or people trying to request deeds that aren't theirs? Can you talk a little bit about that?
Sure. So you can get a copy of anyone's deed. It's public information. But as far as when it comes in to record, I do think we just recently took a fraudulent deed, and that was in January. But there are ways that we should be able to, prevent this from happening. So, but you'd have to have someone with experience that would know, okay, what are we looking for? So I think it's out there. We don't see a lot of it. Now, I've been there 32 years. We've seen 2 fraudulent deeds. No one's going to just steal your deed. No, okay. They can't do that. But there should be, I think at this point, not even with technology, it's knowing how we take those documents in, what we can look at and make sure. There's a few things, I have some great ideas that we could prevent, another one from getting recorded. But we do go by the operation of law. So if it has it's signed, it's notarized, there are just certain,
Red flags that you look for?
Yeah, we have to look for it, but if they meet everything, we have to take it.
What is the one thing if there's one thing you could change at the registry, what is like your top priority at the registry
If I could
to improve or whatever what you want to do, your ideas that you were talking about.
Right.
What's your top thing that
So
you
my
really want to?
I have several top things, because from being there, I was in customer service for 15 years, and I've watched these customers come in, you know, and I know what they want, what they're looking for. So what I would do is definitely, would open up to the public, as far as letting people come in, use our computers. I would like to do some educating to the towns, to the people, because we record variances, permits, order of conditions, all the documents. So the people that grab these, they're applying for them with the towns, they come into our office, we can't record them because they're missing information. It could be it could be one owner's name that's missing on that document, and we have to send them away. So I do think communicating with the towns and making sure that we're on the same page as far as putting the right information on them, or we do now e-file. So I would love to go to the towns and set them up to e-file those documents right from the town. So the customer doesn't have to come in, they can pay the town the money, it will go into the state, right?
That's a great idea.
It is, it's just simple. It will make it easier for them.
So with all the privacy laws that are in effect, somebody can just walk in off the street and just get that document, and even though certain places you can't get addresses or telephone numbers, you can get that document?
You can, yes, yeah.
And there's no law that prevents that?
No.
So what do you think of these online companies that offer you protection against fraud? Is there any good to them?
I don't think so, no. I mean, honestly, I think, so we do have that, we have a protection program that's right on our website.
Mm-hmm.
That's a notification type of, yeah, you can sign up for it. I'm signed up for it. You have to have, you know, your address has to go in there. You will never know if it works, but the state is the one who implemented it into all the registries, so let's hope that they did it right.
So it's, if somebody tries to log on or try to get documents
Well, no,
from
if
you,
they record.
If they record
yeah,
something,
anyone, you can go online. You could go right online and get a copy of your deed, your mortgage. You can see who's been foreclosed on. You could see what that person's mortgage is. You will never know how much they owe. A lot of people want to know, how much do they owe on that?
Yeah.
Especially if you're in real estate, right?
Right.
People want to know, that way they can put their price in for that
Sure,
house
sure.
based on that.
Sure. So that's a notification system, much like if you're logging on to your bank account from another website or another computer
Location
that
from
they're
a
not
different
recognized.
cell phone
Right.
or whatever. You'll get an alert.
So they automatically give you a warning. Well, that's a good thing. How do you?
Well, they only do a warning only if a document's recorded.
Only if it's recorded.
So.
But that's better than nothing.
Oh, I know, and that's how I look at it. At least it's more than we had, right?
Right.
So,
So-
but we want to prevent that. We want to prevent the deeds from actually getting on record. So there's like, I have a few ideas how we could actually do that.
Oh, good. So how much money is actually in the operation at the Registry of Deeds? How much?
Your budget.
What's
How
your
much?
budget?
It's about 1.3 million.
And where does that money come from? Taxpayers, or is it from people who are?
It's the fees we
From the
charge,
fees.
yeah.
Yeah.
So we charge, you know, every document is, you know, has a fee and,
Now, some of those fees are dedicated to other things, correct?
yeah.
Like what are
Community
some-
Preservation
Community
Act, yeah.
Preservation Act, right? So how much of that fee goes into that? Because that's
It's per document,
yeah.
so it would be $50 per document.
So that's a good program, the CPC program. you know,
Right, right.
And I think that's a good thing. What is the number one thing that people complain about that you would be willing to try to rectify when you're there, and whether it be on the computer or whether it be on your website or what have you?
Right. Well, I think what people complain about is they're really looking for, they want to come in and change their deed. They need, I want to do a lawyer of the day program, so I could have people come in, or we can go to the senior centers and we can talk to them about estate planning. That's what people really,
great idea.
yeah, they really need that. They come in, they think they can just change the deed on their own, and they can't. And it's something they should really speak to an attorney, a probated, you know, a state attorney, and look into it, what's best for their situation. So that would be something I would do. And then some seminars on homesteads. People like to do, they want to protect their property. We record homesteads. We used to notarize right in the office, so now we don't, and I'm going to bring that back in if elected. But yeah, we don't have, people complain more about just not having the access to record documents. Or if they're buying property, especially in Lowell, right? The properties are so close together, they might have a shared driveway. Well, that driveway could be an easement that was given back in 1930, and it was put on the deed, not a separate document. So we'd have to go, I used to, that in customer service, I spent so many hours helping people try to find these easements to see, do they have access? They're parked on this side. So those would be complaints that people have.
Mm-hmm. Phil, you have any questions?
No, I think Karen's getting to a point that I was going to ask about, essentially education to the public of what the registry does. I mean, if you ask most people, unless they've bought property or had to go through and get an approval for a special permit, they've never had any dealings, let alone with the boards that they have to go in front of, the Registry of Deeds themselves. I mean, that seems, like kind of like the men behind the curtain when
Right.
they talk to their attorneys and then, okay, they have to go to the registry and,
And everyone's so
who knows what it
nervous.
is?
Right. When they do come in, it's like the courthouse, because we're in the courthouse, they're so scared, they're nervous, they have to go through the metal detector. So
You don't
it is.
think of things like that,
I know,
though.
and it is. It's discouraging when we have to say, oh, we can't accept this document. The certificate has 2 owners on
Now I've
it.
got to come back and go through the metal detectors again.
And you have to, the parking
Yeah.
alone is a problem. But, so I think if we can eliminate that end for the residents, that would be something great if all the towns did the e-filing right from their offices.
Yeah, it's certainly the easier it can be made. I mean, I sat on the planning board in Dracut for a number of years, and so often, a resident would come in nervous because they're filing for a special permit, and they'd say, I've never done this before, and I would usually say to them, and you're probably never going to do it again.
Right.
So you try to make it as easy for them as possible.
Exactly.
John, we do have a comment.
Sure.
Karen has a fan out there. John
Okay.
McDonough says Karen is amazing.
John McDonough is a fan.
Hi, John.
So, Karen, how many employees do you have?
10.
10.
10 employees.
10 employees.
Yeah.
And they all have experience and background from how many years they've been there, right?
Right.
Right.
I did have one other.
Go ahead.
So you had mentioned the budget being, I think,
0.3,
1.3.
yeah, approximate.
So
yeah.
that's just northern Middlesex.
Yeah, Middlesex
not-
South is, I want to say they're about 4 million.
Wow.
Okay.
I mean, they do cover 44 towns, so we're only 10, but,
10 towns. What towns are they?
so we cover Billerica, Carlisle, Chelmsford, Dracut, Dunstable, Lowell, Tewksbury, Tingsboro, Westford, and Wilmington.
Wow, that's impressive. She
You remember them all. That's
32
good.
years.
So the voters in all of those towns get to vote for
Yes.
you if they want to. So why don't you, we're coming to the end of our, is there anything you want to add to?
No, that would-
So, okay, if we want you to look into that camera right there and ask the voters of Dracut for their support.
Hi, I'm Karen Casella, running for Register of Deeds. I am asking you to support me September 3rd. I am the only candidate with the experience, and I'm asking that you promote me into that position, and I can lead that office to help all the residents in the district.
Thank you so much, Karen, for joining us this morning, and we'll have you back again sometime before the September primary.
All right.
And that September primary is what date? Do you know the date of that?
September 3rd.
September 3rd.
There'll be 3 of us.
Very good. So,
Well,
yeah, good. Don't
could
forget
be.
to get out and vote. And at this
Yes.
point, we're going to change out the seats and bring our next guest in, and Gordy's got something to,
Yeah, we're going to look at the new location for the J&J
oh, okay.
J Heating. Yep.
J&J
Heating,
Heating.
and then
So
we'll
you can
talk
see
about
for those people who have asked questions about that, where is this new location going to be? Where the I think there's a coffee. Isn't?
There was talk about having a Starbucks on the
but-
corner, but that's
That's not it.
by the wayside.
All right,
That's
so I'm
the
gonna
subject of
we're
a-
gonna-
of
we got
a-
a little video here of the area so
Sure.
people can see it.
Okay, we'll be right back. welcome our guest of the second segment for today is Josh Taylor. He's a candidate for Dracut Selectman. Good morning, Josh.
Good morning, John. Good morning, Dracut.
Good to see you. And
Thank you.
with him this morning is Tony Archinsky, who's a current selectman. And Tony, how you been?
I've been great, actually. Thank you for having me on my maiden voyage
Yes.
on What's Happening Dracut. I just keep looking around to make sure I'm not sitting on the deck of the Titanic. I woke up this morning, I had a head cold. I had some basal cell issues going on with my soft Irish skin, and my back is killing me. But other than that, 70 looks good on me.
Yeah. Well,
Looking good.
Gordy is in charge of the button that discharges the seat,
Yeah.
and you get thrown off the set. So
Yeah, right.
be careful about that. That you're at least nice to us on that end, right?
Sure.
And you came along today because you had an announcement recently about who you're going to be supporting in this election. I'd like you to tell the folks why you made the choice and what it means to you.
Oh, sure. Well, as a sitting selectman, it's extreme. I think that this election is probably one of the most important elections that we've had since I've been on the board. You and I served together, John, and we did choose one town manager before that. But I mean, it's no secret that Ann Vandal has indicated that she will be retiring at some point in this next 3-year term. We all know what happened with the last selection process of the town manager. So that's very important. But the other thing is that when you look to see who you can work best with, I've vetted all of the candidates. Josh has been around. Josh didn't just show up on the scene within the last 6 months or a year because he was thinking about running for selectman. I think that as people talk about how, Tony and Josh, I don't know if they're going to get along with each other or whatever. I chose Josh mainly because there will be things that we will disagree on. And
Absolutely.
that's what is so important in this election. I've been on the minority side of the board for many, many years. And when that happens, when you see the majority of the board making stupid decisions just so that the minority doesn't have a say, there's a problem there. That's a problem in government. So when I looked at Josh, nobody controls Josh Taylor. No. Josh Taylor is, what you see is what you get, and I'm sure that we will disagree on a lot of things. And my mantra has always been, if you and I disagree with each other, that's my fault. It's my fault because I have failed to convince you of my point of view. I'm not going to get mad at you if you disagree with me. And John, I think you know that just from working with me. But I'm looking for a fresh voice, a fresh face, and somebody who's going to do their own research, and somebody that's going to, formulate their own questions, and someone who's going to make up their own mind. And if we agree, fine. If we don't, that's okay too.
Sure. Well, out of good decisions comes good debate, right?
Absolutely.
And the current situation is you've got 3 people that are just lockstep, and they're not going to vote for anything that you or Heather propose. And we saw that with the simple thing of a code of conduct. Tony, how do you not accept a code of conduct?
Well, that's a good question. In fact, I think the Lowell City Council it's up for debate now. For various different reasons. But I'm still reeling over that vote. I just don't get it. But again, it is it's a lot of one person has the idea and the other 2 follow in lockstep, and there's no debate. There's no discussion, and from good debate comes good decisions.
You're right. So, how do you feel, Josh, about getting that endorsement?
I think
this week from Tony.
I think it's great. As Tony just said, I'm sure there are going to be some things that we disagree about, but we'll be able to have a discussion on it, and I'm going to try to convince him, and he's going to try to convince me, and we're going to do it in front of the voters of Dracut at that table to be transparent so everybody can see how we're working together. And I think it's going to be really important for the entire town, for the Board of Selectmen to have that ability to be able to work with each other, placed back in its steps.
So my biggest thing is that there are endorsements, and people will say that endorsements kind of box you in, or they say that, oh yeah, you're being endorsed by one side or the other. And I like to always point out that Tony and I served on the board together. Tony actually ran against me on one of my re-election campaigns, and we still got along even after that. And today we even are better friends than we were before that. But when he was on the board, we agreed on a lot of things and we disagreed on a couple of things. But the bottom line is you got to be able to get these endorsements so that people know that you can be trusted by somebody else on the board. Now, there are people on the other side that have endorsed one of your opponents.
Yeah.
And all your opponents have endorsements, so they all come with baggage and they all come with good stuff. I've decided to support you, and I've made that public, and I'm making it official here today that I support your candidacy. And believe me, I tried my hardest to get all the candidates to come on the show. Don Plummer came on. I'm impressed with Don Plummer. I think he's a good guy. I just think that he's not the candidate for this particular time, in my view. I need a person that's going to stand up and fight, and you're proven to do that. You've proven to take a stand on things and let the consequences come where they may, right?
Absolutely. You don't back down from things.
Sure.
If you're right, you're going to try to convince everybody you're right, and you're also going to listen to what they have to say and take it in.
Right.
And that's important. And I've always been one to stand up for what's right. I'm one to stand up for the people of town. And I want to be the one to be there so that if somebody in town has an issue, they can reach out to me. They can talk to me.
Sure.
I'm available, and I'm willing to help the entire community.
I know the guy to my left here, Phil Thibault, has also made an announcement recently. So, Phil, why don't you tell the folks?
Yeah. So, I mean, I'm one of the persons who have had the pleasure of being on the same ballot as both Tony and Josh at one point. I don't recall how many times I've run for selectman, although I'm sure there's somebody out there who could remind me. But when I ran, I always ran essentially for a seat. I never personally thought I was running against somebody. I was always running for a seat. And that's one thing that I like about Tony and Josh also, is that they're running for what's best for Dracut. And so that's why I'm endorsing Josh this year, because I believe he has the best intention for Dracut. He's not running against somebody. He's running for Dracut.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely. Thank you, Phil.
You've gotten other endorsements too, right?
I've gotten quite a few, actually. I've never seen so many people come out for endorsements in a local race. I think it's absolutely fantastic. In fact, this morning I was out holding signs on Mammoth Road, and my phone started tinging away, and Renee Young from the school committee endorsed me this morning.
Oh, that's great news.
So that is great. She's great. Rob Shepard from the school committee also has endorsed me. Tammy and George DeSolaris have. Our very own Richard Silvio has on social media. And there's a large handful of friends on Facebook who have put things on their walls. And they're not public figures. They're not in the know, but I can't believe how many people have gone out of their way to write an endorsement and post it on their wall, and I see it on mine.
That's awesome.
So it is great.
Now that social media has become an important cog in many local elections, right? And as you know, Tony, you've done a lot of the social media stuff, and you get pretty good at it.
I was actually one of the first selectman candidates way back in the day that actually started using Facebook, and I didn't know the difference between MySpace and Your Face and Facebook and all that, and you learn quick, especially when you're pushing things out on Facebook, where it's advertising and
correct,
and you're paying for it, and whoever lives at 01826, and by the way, Facebook knows that.
Yeah.
You can throw an ad up and they read it, and it's just amazing that the reach that you have now that you didn't have 10 years ago, 12 years ago.
No, correct. Yeah. And if you are supported by someone who's not one of us, like me, like a lightning rod. I'm a lightning rod. So there is plus and minus from from getting my endorsement. And I talked with Josh about this. And I also talked to Plummer about it. Unfortunately, Dave Martin won't come on the show, right? And that's obviously an issue. And if he was really sincere about wanting to do the right thing, he'd come on here and face the hard questions that I give to everybody. And we're going to get into some of that now.
Well, John, not to interrupt, and not to disparage any other candidate. I mean, there were 2 out of the 3 candidates that came to me and asked for my support as well. And Dave Martin wasn't one of them. And then he was on some media outlet, and he said that he'd be happy to have me join his team. If I would like to. I've been in politics a long time. I don't think that's the way it works.
That isn't the way it works.
But good luck with that.
Yeah. In other words, come along. Just let me know when you're ready, right?
Right.
But the bottom line is you got to ask for people's votes.
You do.
Right?
But before we leave the endorsement topic,
Sure.
I've named some of the individuals, but we also have to look at Dracut Police Association. They jumped out with an endorsement. They're a great group of men and women that are, out in the streets. I've gone to some of their meetings, and we had a retirement plaque for a few of the guys that left last week. I've got a picture and some info on that in the site. I've also gone to a couple of the fire department meetings and talked to them. And while the fire department chose not to endorse any candidate, quite a few of the guys have been out supporting me, and it's been great.
Sure. I think Dave Martin being... and I'm the person that'll be mentioning the names, by the way, of the other candidates. But Dave Martin has touted that he was a captain on the fire department, and he worked there for so many years, and he was a top union guy. And I think it's telling that the fire department didn't endorse him. That's a telling thing.
When your own group doesn't endorse you, you should take a real good look in the mirror, John. That's all.
Yeah. What say you about that, Gordy? About the endorsement?
Yeah, I was surprised because one of the things he's touted in his campaign is being a previous firefighter. So you would assume that the firefighters would support him.
Right.
I have a personal relationship with Dave's family. I coached his youngest son in basketball since he was in 2nd grade.
Yeah.
So that's why I'm a little torn. I haven't made an announcement yet of who I'm going to be supporting. I think I'm going to wait till Thursday to go to the candidates night just to make sure that I make the right decision. But
Right.
I love Josh. He's a great guy. I love that you can call him. He's open. I saw the plane flying last week. That was awesome.
It was.
No, but I think all 3 candidates are good people. You know what I mean? I think they're really good people. And as I said in the last show, I think this is the most critical and important election we've had since I've been in town.
Right.
I mean, with all the issues we have in town now, and Tony knows them very well. Josh, I think you know them very well.
Yeah.
This is critical. We need the right person in there. So,
And unfortunately, Phil, as you know, when the wagons get circled by a certain group in town, the mud starts to fly, right? And things start getting put out there that just aren't true. And we've had that, both you and I have had that done by that other crew. And unfortunately, that crew is supporting Dave Martin. I mean, the chairman of the board has not hidden her endorsements. She's been taking him around, and she's even done some privately door-to-door on her own without Dave, and she's knocking on doors to get Dave's support, because there's a difference between the endorsement of Dave Martin and that comes from the Town Hall West. And that endorsement comes with the status quo. If you like what's going on in town, and you like the status quo, you like no transparency, you like it that they don't recuse themselves when they have issues that might be peripheral on conflicts of interest, and it might be a serious conflict of interest. They don't announce it. Tony, you do all the time. You're to be applauded. Angel, she mentioned that you you know, she stands up for you every time
She
you
claps
recuse
in the
yourself.
mirror every time.
She claps.
Yeah,
You know,
really.
you do that. It's the right thing to do.
And you know, if I ever have a doubt, I think that's the cue. You know, if you have a doubt that, you know, could somebody view this as a conflict? It doesn't even necessarily have to be a
Right.
conflict. It's the appearance of impropriety that you want to avoid. So, you know, for example, I think one of the pizza places was in front of the board last week for a permit. Well, my son works for them, so I said, well, you know what? It really doesn't have anything to do
That
with
was
it.
the right
but
thing
I
to
think
do.
I'm going to take a powder. You know.
You know,
that's-
and if I may, I mean,
Yes.
just on that very topic, and in my article at the Valley Patriot, I wrote about that, you know, the people who are supporting Dave Martin have lambasted me when I ran about, you know, my conflicts of interest and my work in the town as an architect. Well, all of a sudden they fall silent because, I mean, Dave Martin is a contractor in town, and I think most of his work is in town. We often have worked for the same clients or the same sort of clientele, and it's like, well, where is their concern about conflicts of interest there? And I state in my article, it's not about the conflicts of interest, it's really about the hypocrisy of the group, that they will throw out almost anything to try to get their candidates supported. And I honestly don't see a conflict of interest with Dave working in town or Josh working in town. I mean, you do the proper thing, and I'm sure that. Yeah. And I have seen Josh do the proper thing always. Mm-hmm. But again, it's just that effort to, okay, let's smear something.
Yeah. And, you know, I bring out points that people don't like to hear. But I'm not trying to smear somebody's personal name or that or anything of that nature. I'm just trying to tell it like it is. That if you're in a cabal with people that are going to just do whatever the hell they want to do without hearing from the people themselves, that's a bad thing. There's a couple of comments here on Facebook from some of our viewers. We have a bunch of viewers out there today, Josh.
That's a good
Bob
thing.
Morrill says he's with Josh Taylor. Let's see, Angel is saying a couple things about people that should, you know, take a lesson from watching from Tony. And
John McDonough.
John McDonough is saying that he's with
Josh.
John McDonough is from Lowell, but City Life comes into Dracut, and he has an influence on people. That's a big endorsement too. And Tony, John McDonough says you're one of the best. But he says that about everybody. But that's okay. But I'll
On a
let that
scale
go.
of 1 to 10.
That's right. You know, these endorsements come with a lot of different things. So we'll put that aside now. If you didn't have them, let me say this. If you didn't have them, they'd be saying, oh, my God, he doesn't have any endorsements because nobody trusts him.
One more thing on the endorsement,
Sure.
though. You know, I can't tell you how many calls I got this week since I put the letter out that I was in support of Josh.
Yeah.
And it was like, well, Tony, you know, obviously Josh is a guy that you're more comfortable working with than the other ones. And I mean, people actually do ask you who would you like to serve with? And so in my case, you know, when I came out and endorsed him, I got a lot of calls about, well, that's great, and we're with Josh too.
Good.
So that does help.
So, Josh, let's talk a little bit about some of the issues that are facing the town.
Sure.
And there's a plethora of them. There's a lot of different issues. And the biggest issue, obviously, is going to be the issue with the replacing of or finding a new manager. What's your feelings on that? I mean, we've already seen in the last debate how it's shaken out, but tell the voters how you feel about the process and how it should go.
Well, first off, I don't personally have anything against our current town manager.
Right.
You know, other people out there think that this is I'm running for in vendetta. It can't be further from the truth. You know, I have had disagreements with her, but I can certainly work with Ann going forward, and I don't intend to make any actions to do anything other than that. It was the first. As far as when she chooses to retire, a contract comes up, etc., we really need to get a group of people together, as we did when she was hired, and interview the best talent that we can get for Dracut. We have to get somebody that's a strong town manager, somebody that can work with economic development, somebody that can have good impact with boosting morale at town hall. You know, that's a very important thing. We have to be able to talk to the department heads and see how they feel about it. They're going to be working with this person day in and day out, and that should all be taken in to the decision that the selectmen make on how they're going to hire somebody, in my opinion. So it's a big effort, and it should be followed. It should be written out, spelled out. A plan should be made, and it should be followed from the start to the end, not followed 3/4 of the way through and then changed at the last part of the game.
Correct.
That's the main thing.
That's what made that's what
And
makes
public input, transparency, the top priorities in finding the town manager, because that town manager is here for the betterment of our community. And we have to find somebody that can work with us in that capacity.
That's one of the main reasons why I said that I'd support Josh. There's other reasons also, but Phil, you have personal knowledge about the last process. You were the chairman of that board that was appointed to take on the task of ferreting through 50 or 60 or whatever number there was of applicants. Why don't you tell people how it went?
So the number of resumes that were received were 54 resumes, and that was whittled down. I served with Charlie Canavis. There was the appointment by Tony. It was a committee that worked very well, and I'm proud to say nothing ever leaked out of that committee, which, to be honest, I was somewhat surprised.
That is surprising.
We whittled the 54 down to, I believe, 14 or 15. A number of the applicants kind of dropped out after it was whittled down. So we actually had 12 interviews.
So when you say whittled down, you out of the 54
we went
chose,
through every single resume and looked
Right.
at their resume and said, should we interview this person?
Right.
And
Do they meet the
It was a kind of a
qualifications?
yes or no.
Yeah.
And then by the time we'd finished up, there was a group of, like I said, 15 that had received the majority of the yes, let's interview them.
Was Ann Vandal one of them?
Yes, she was.
Okay, so on the
Absolutely.
first step, Ann Vandal made the cut.
Absolutely.
Okay, so now you go through the interviews with the 15,
Go through
which
the
is
interviews.
a daunting process.
It is. So we did that over 3 days. And we had 3 or 4 candidates every day, so we could get through the group. And then after we did all the interviews, we huddled down and we said, should this candidate go forward to the Board of Selectmen? And we decided that.
So you had one interview process of the 15 people, and then you were going to take 3 or 4 of those names.
We had decided not to actually pick a number that we wanted to reach.
Okay.
We went through, should this person go forward, yes or no?
Okay.
And when we did that for every single candidate, we looked at the numbers, and we had 4 candidates that were unanimous. Yes, these 4 people should go forward.
Okay.
And then we discussed amongst ourselves, should we go to the next tier down? Those who had received 4 yeses and 1 no.
Yeah.
And then that started, in the discussion, we decided that, well, that just kind of muddies it further down. We have 4 good candidates that we absolutely believe should be interviewed. And so the committee decided amongst themselves to say, we're going to set it at whoever was unanimous. Ian was not in that list.
Right. So now, Tony, why was it that the Board of Selectmen but handed over the process to a group that each selectman put a candidate on?
Well, my recollection is, first of all, it's easier. We work full time and things like that. So this was all done with the help of the Collins Center that actually brought in all of these 38 resumes or whatever. And Phil, I agree. I think one of the biggest misnomers in this town is that Ann Vandal was not given a chance to become the town manager. She was in the mix. She just didn't make the final cut. And my recollection, now I'm getting old, but my recollection was that all 5 of the selectmen listed experience in economic development as one of the main things that we wanted in a new town manager. If you remember, we were replacing Jim Duggan. Jim Duggan had just rebuilt Loon Hill Road with all of the economic development that went there. Right. So that was fresh on our mind. This is the type of guy or type of manager that we want to bring in that would help the town with significant economic development.
If you recall, Tony, I was on that board that brought Jim Govey. That was my one of my final most important votes, I believe. And everybody, to a person, all touted that we want somebody with economic development. And Jim had a good amount of economic development from the town that he came from in Gloucester, where he was an assistant town manager and a developer. And he did a great job. And I think that had he stayed a few more years, you would have saw more development in the tune of $50 to $150 million. Those are the types of economic impact that's going to help your revenue base expand at that level. Josh, what's your feeling on that?
You're 100% correct. We need to have a larger commercial base brought in. And I worked with Jim when I first got into the town politics. Jim's the one that appointed me to conservation back in, I think, 2019. And putting aside any of the other stuff, I thought his basis, he was a good manager. He really worked on bringing that in, bringing the economic development in, and trying to work with people in the town.
So not to beat a dead horse, but one of the candidates, Dave Martin, has said that he wants to promote from within. Yeah. So in my mind, the minute he says that, he wants Victor Garofalo to be the next manager. He more or less said that Ann is schooling that person along and mentoring him, and to me, you're going from one political appointed manager to another political appointed manager that a small group of a majority of the board is going to end up controlling what goes on in town. How do you feel about that, Tony?
Well, I'm starting to experience a lot of frustration and disappointment on the tail wagging the dog. Never, in at least the time that I've been there, have I ever seen such a case where it appears that Ann Vandal, the town manager, is calling the shots, and the three people on the majority of the board are saying okay. I mean, that's not the way it's supposed to work in my mind. The town manager is supposed to take direction from the Board of Selectmen. Case in point, Ann has just announced that she's going to appoint a committee to study the budget. Now, when I was the chairman of the board, I don't know if you remember it, John, but I appointed a joint budget task force where we had the superintendent of schools, the town manager, that we had their financial people, 2 people on the Board of Selectmen, 2 people on the school committee, and 2 people on the finance committee. And that was called the joint budget task force. And those were the people that were tasked with looking at the budget, projecting what's going to go out and all that. But that was all done through the Board of Selectmen to the town manager. So it's a little bit like the tail wagging the dog to me when the town manager informs the board that she's going to appoint a committee to help her solve the budget crisis.
Well, your form of committee is more transparent. It's open to the public and people can come in and talk and listen or listen to what's going on. I think what Ann is doing, and she outright said it, we need a committee where we can do this behind closed doors, where the members of the committee can be more relaxed in having discussions about the serious things that go on. Well, why can't you do that in public, Tony? Why wouldn't you want to do that in public? To me, I think she's going to make this committee non-public, and it's going to be mostly with people from within town hall making decisions.
How much time do we have?
We have time. We have time.
I mean, you share my frustration, with the charter review committee. Now, the town charter says within itself that that a committee will be appointed to study the charter every 10 years, and somebody interpreted that as, well, why don't we just appoint ourselves?
Yeah.
I mean, come on. I mean, that was not the intent of the charter.
No.
Never was, never should be.
No.
The town charter is a governmental document for the people, by the people.
Correct.
Tony, Josh, weigh in on this. Tell us what you think about that committee being appointed by the town manager.
Well, both the charter committee, the selectmen should have never went back on their original vote. They should have went to an appointed committee, not handing it to town management. On the second one with the town manager appointing the committee, that's not how it should happen. I sat in that meeting and watched as she said she was going to pick 2 selectmen. So now you have the town manager picking 2 of her bosses to be on a committee that she's appointing.
Which 2 is she going to pick and which 3 is she
Well,
going
I can tell you who she's not going to pick.
Yeah.
She's not going to pick the selectman with the most experience on the board,
Yeah.
and she certainly isn't going to pick the selectman that that does a $500 million budget for a job. So that's not going to happen.
And
So
she's,
I don't know.
she's certainly not going to pick me when I win on the 4th. So
Oh, that's good. That's confidence. There's confidence.
There you go.
Phil, we know why the board, here's where my ego comes into play. And I'm going to drag you into that ego. Because, Tony, you can almost confirm this. We know why they didn't want an appointed committee. Because they were afraid that either Phil Thibault or John Zimini might be placed on that committee. And then you'd have an open process, right? So that's my ego speaking. What say you on that?
Oh, absolutely. But certainly I have found over the years, and I think people can see it, that you don't necessarily have to be on a committee to essentially push the discussion.
That's right.
Because I have said that the voice is more important than the vote.
Right.
And in particular, where I'm speaking of is zoning bylaw review. I mean, economic development is generated solely by bylaws. Because if something can't go there, then you're not going to be generating income from that. I'd like to ask Josh what his impression is of the zoning bylaw review process and committee that have been going on right now.
Well, the impression started sour in the beginning when they took the person that probably had the most knowledge on it and basically blocked you from getting on it, Phil. So to be honest with you, I've sat at a lot of different meetings for different things, and you always have good input when it comes to the zoning. You're very involved in it, and you should have been allowed to be there, not been silenced, and not allowed to even speak at the meetings. Isn't correct. It is important. We really have to look into that, and the whole committee needs a review, basically.
Well, obviously I feel the same way about that, they just, to Tony's point about, the committee that Ann wants to appoint and the transparency of it, that whole thing is just, it's obviously being, the 3 are driving her, but standing behind her and letting her take the lead. Instead of them publicly saying what they want, they privately go and talk to her. And that's not right, whether they do it together as 3, and I don't believe they do that. At this point, I have no proof that they do that. But as separately, they whisper in the ear of the manager saying, this is what I'd like to do, and this is what I support. So I just don't, I think it's a lack of transparency, and it's a whole problem with a political appointment.
To your comment earlier on that, with them wanting to do it behind closed doors, that's totally not right.
No.
Any of those committees, the only time you need closed doors is for certain personnel issues that are in executive session.
Right.
Other than that, everything should be wide open, should be transparent for the residents of town. They should be allowed to come into these meetings and have community input. Even things as the last meeting with the letter from Murphy's Farm that came up and they wanted to be read.
Right.
So I find that amazing that it's going to get published on the town website. The board's talking about it in front of everybody. We're going to put it out on Monday, but we can't talk about it today.
But once they have the letter, it's public knowledge.
You're correct.
It should be able to be talked about.
And that's why I got up and I addressed the board at that meeting. All 3 candidates were in the room.
Yep.
I got up and I addressed the board. Out of transparency, you should read the letter. I said to the chair, as chair, you don't have to acknowledge it. You don't have to allow discussion on it, but you should read the letter because you're sitting here talking about it.
Right.
It's part of the public record. It's getting posted. And I walked away from the podium as he tried to tell me, well, we're going to get personal phone calls and we can't. The answers were irrelevant. You should have read the letter. And I find it absolutely amazing that, opponents post on Facebook the next day that they should have read the letter.
Yeah.
They were in the same room. Where was their leadership ability? How come they didn't get up to the microphone? Just because we're running against each other for this open seat, we could have worked together in that instance, and the other 2 opponents could have got up and said the same thing, and maybe the zoning board would have said, geez, all 3 candidates want us to read the letter. Maybe we should read it for transparency to the people of the community.
To that very point, people who are placed on committees in town, volunteers, should not really, their concern shouldn't be when they're trying to do a hearing and reach a decision that, will I get phone calls at home? Because I have received more than my fair share of phone calls when I was on the planning board, and even permanent building committee. I have received packages from unions and phone calls and such. That's not my concern. My concern is to do the best job that I can for that committee and for the town of Dracut. To that point, Josh has been giving out his cell phone number, saying, if you have anything to give for input, tell me.
Absolutely.
Here is my cell phone number.
Right.
I find that admirable.
Yeah, and the other thing, Josh, is believe me, as a member of the board, I have attended every CARD meeting except for one I was out of town, but I've attended every single CARD meeting since the day that they formed, and nobody's going to pull any wool over their eyes. I mean, they can see where your heart is, and they can see who they're going to be better off with, as opposed to having someone come up saying, I support your cause, I always have, and I've never been to a CARD meeting or whatever. So I agree with your point that they could have gotten up to the podium just as well as you have and voiced their opinion. I, on the other hand, as a sitting selectman, I'm watching the whole process go out, and believe me, if anybody saw me when we had the pipeline issue, when I got up in front of the feds and let them have it, my day will come where I will address the zoning board of appeals.
Good. Let's move on to overrides, because there's a lot of talk about overrides, and one of the overrides that's being proposed is a $10 million override that's going to be stretched over 3 or 4 years. And I've gotten the figures directly from Ann Vandal off of her blog that say that at the end of the 3 or 4 years of that $10 million, and if we give them $10 million, they're going to use $10 million. They're not going to use it to fix the problem. They're going to use to Band-Aid the problem. And at the end of the 3 years, you're still going to have the issue. And you, the taxpayers, are going to be paying, on average, $1,800 more a year in taxes. That isn't even including the 2.5% every year you get. But based on that $10 million, you're going to be paying $1,800 more. So for a guy like me, I'm almost at $5,500 a year in taxes, I'm going to be paying over $7,000 in taxes, right? Yeah. So let's talk about that where do you stand on an override for operating expenses? I know you were pretty clear during the debate, so let's see.
It's pretty much the same answer, John. As far as where I stand on it, personally right now, I am not in favor of it. I'm not in favor of it for a few reasons. One, it's a Band-Aid, like you just said. It's not a fix. We need to look for and find a repair, a real fix for the problem. Because if we give them a $10 million Band-Aid right now, that's going to last us for 3 years. The town manager has said at the selectmen's meeting, well, we can't predict what's going to happen in year 4 and 5. We're still paying for it, but the money will be gone. It's simply a Band-Aid. It's not a fix. I, however, will vote to approve it, because my job as selectman is to take the warrant articles that come in front of me and vote to put them on the ballot at town meeting, so that the people, the residents of this community, have a chance to come in and voice their opinions and concerns on it at town meeting.
So let me just clarify that, so somebody doesn't twist your words, because the other side is famous for doing that. So you would approve advancing the question to the voters.
Correct.
And let the voters decide. But you yourself, would you campaign against it? Would you stand up and say, I'm not for the override?
There's a lot that can happen between now and the time it hits town meeting. Mm-hmm. Now, can we be guaranteed that there's going to be no layoffs within the public sector as far as police, fire, teachers, personnel? Do we have a repair in the works that looks like it's going to work to solve the problem? Do we really need 10 million? Can we go for an override for less to get us another year until we have that solution in place? If we're going just on what is there right now today for a $10 million override, I'm against it. If between now and the time it comes to town meeting, We have made significant progress. The numbers have changed. I could be in favor of it because I know we have to solve the problem. I am not in favor of a $10 million blank check because, as we know, they're going to spend 11.
You know, Tony, right, that overrides for operating expenses has never passed.
Yes, and I can tell you that I was in favor of the last 3 overrides for operating expenses that, as you know, history will show that they all went down in flames. I have a little bit of a different take on it, and I agree with what Josh says. First of all, this $10 million deficit wasn't even projected a year ago. So how are we to know what's going to happen 4 years from now? So there's my issue. I agree with you, Josh. There has to be a plan. There has to be a full, safe plan. But the other thing that I think about, because I lived through the last major deficit in the 80s when I was a police officer, and they laid 4 police officers off, they laid 4 firefighters off. I was demoted from sergeant back down to patrolman. And I think you have to always keep in mind that these aren't just numbers. These are people. Yeah. These are people that have families. These are young cops that just bought a house because they just got a good job, because they just had a new baby and stuff like that. So, before you think about, well, no, I'm not going to vote for an override, I have to also think about those things because, bean counters are bean counters, and I'm here to help people.
Correct.
Well, I was opposed to all 3 of those overrides because I knew that there was no fix.
And we still
place.
talk to each other?
We do. We do talk and have coffee and what have you, and we still talk. I'm not in favor of any overrides for operating expenses until, like you said, Josh, fix
Correct.
the systemic issue. And I put in place, before I left, while I was on the board for 9 years, I actually put in place what I considered would be a good fix, would be the Economic Development Committee that was supposed to go out and attract and bring business in, not small businesses like the ribbon cuttings that we see every day from the smiley face of your chairman of your board, Tony, and others. And they sit there and they say, this is economic development. This is not economic development when you look at the bottom line that your increase in revenue is only $450,000 a year because of 2.5, and not because of the expansion of your economic base. That's an issue. That's a systemic issue that I've been off the board now for over 15 years. It should take place. Do you have something to say about that, Gordy?
Yeah, well, there's a person that used to be my next door neighbor who's now moved out of Dracut that opened a brewery. The brewery happens to be in Tingsboro right now. And I told him the story. I said, hey, why didn't you open this up in Dracut? This would have been great in Dracut. He goes, well, I went to the town, said I wanted to do this, and all they put up is roadblock. They wouldn't work with me. So once my father spoke to someone in Tingsboro, said, hey, we'd love to have you. What can we do to help you get this in here? He goes, well, we really don't know what we need. I'm like, okay, well, we'll sit down with you. You need this, you need this, you need this. You got to go to the ABC, get your... And they stepped them through every step of the process. Dracut, no. They didn't want it in town, so they didn't.
But that's because that brewery didn't have any connection to the big 3.
Right.
Right? If you get connected to the big 3.
But I mean, if that's just one example,
Yeah.
How many other times does that happen in town where someone wants to start a business and they go to the town and
Yeah.
say, hey, what are my steps? They don't really know what the steps are. And they're like, can you work with me? And they're like,
No,
all
they
do
put a
is put up
roadblock up
roadblocks.
for everything.
So
Well,
that has to change, and the people that put up the roadblocks work in the town hall.
Right.
So and if those people aren't going to work with the citizens, they need to be replaced.
But that comes from your manager.
Right.
That comes from management. And it comes from the political people that are on the Board of Selectmen that what they want to do. And one particular instance is you have a business in town that just expanded, and the property that he expanded to got $19,000 in taxes a year, and he's in the ground, and they decide to give him a TIF. And the TIF is a tax incentive.
And we're in a budget crisis. And
In
now
a
you're
budget
gonna-
crisis. I'm not opposed to TIFs. I voted for them. But I wouldn't vote for it now, and especially after the business is already
we
in
have
the
no
ground.
money.
The only reason that guy got it was that he was connected. That's the only reason, in my view. And he went from paying $19,000 with 2 houses on the property to now a building that's 6 times the size of those 2 houses, and he's only paying $22,000 a year. Those are from Ann Vandal. Those figures are from Ann Vandal. So what do you say about that, what do you say about that, Josh? At this budget time, I think TIFs are a good idea. I voted for them.
TIFs are a good idea to bring in new business.
Right.
My biggest problem with that one that you're describing is if something like that's going to be negotiated, it should be done before the building's up. It should be done, there should be a process clearly written to Gordy's thing. Anybody that wants to even have a business in town, there should be a pamphlet, a process completely laying out and written for people to see of what the process is, what the steps
On the
are.
website, you want to start a business,
Real
Dracut,
easy so that
here's
you
what
can see
need
it.
to do.
But, I don't have any personal connection to this particular business. I would have not voted in favor of that. 1, we're in a deficit. 2, it should have been done before he decided to invest millions in a new building, not after. That's my biggest thing with that. It's a good idea to bring in a new corporation that's going to pay us $100 million, but for something to save a company, all we're doing is we're reaching into the taxpayers' pockets and giving it to this business.
So, I don't know if you know, but Ann Vandal has a blog. And this might seem like we're beating up on Ann Vandal, but this is important stuff. She has a blog. Do you know that?
Can I
Sure.
can I weigh in on the TIF because
Sure.
I voted for the TIF?
Yeah,
By
sure.
the way, yeah. So anyway, a TIF is to entice business into town. When the TIF is discussed. There's no. I agree with you, Josh. Maybe there should be more of a formal process to doing it. For example, when Jim Duggan brought in the assisted living on Loon Hill Ave.
Perfect.
Now you get somebody that's going to invest $100 million, and during the course of, we need to get it rezoned, and we're going to do this, and we're going to do that, and maybe when the time comes, we'll put you in for a TIF. So there's really no way to tell when the TIF was, first brought out, or even promised, or even discussed.
Yeah, I think there were actually 3 TIFs at that time. There
Right,
was
and
Circle
so
Health.
I think the AOT TIF is just bad timing, of course.
I'll agree with that.
Because I wasn't in on the discussions on when they said, if you're going to do this, I go back a long way with Eddie Ayotte. In fact, we were born and grew up in the North Common Housing Project in Lowell, so that's about 65, 70 years I've known Ed Ayotte. But that never came into it because the only time I ever had any indication of the TIF was on the night that I voted for it. I leave the economic development up to people that do that. So with all that said, there's more than just giving a TIF at a bad time. There's other things that are involved. The other thing is that whole area of Arlington Street is going to be a complete changeover for the town. Both, the Ayotte building and Wendy's, they're all going to do a completely different facade that will match the library and the town hall. So we're slowly but surely getting to like an actual town center. So it's going to be an incredible improvement in that area. JJ Sheet Metal also has 55 employees. These employees are people that will be eating in town and buying their gas in town and things like that. So there's a lot more to it than just giving this guy a tax break at the worst time possible. And I think I even said that the night that we voted on it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, it's definitely an issue when you bring it up when it comes in the middle of a campaign for election, and you can you can connect the dots that Eddie Ayotte held signs for, and I don't have any personal beef against Eddie Ayotte, but Eddie Ayotte is probably a millionaire, and not that I care about that. I'm not jealous of that. Good luck to him. I'm glad I know he earned it in town, and he's been here for a long time. But the bottom line is, it looks bad to the voter, and it looks bad to the taxpayer who's struggling through a very bad economy right now, and we're trying to get things done as food prices go up and gas goes up, and they're dipping into the pockets of the taxpayers. And that my whole point was that Ann's blog, she puts up there because she answers social media, and I'm sure it has a lot to do with us, Phil, because we're kind of driving that bus, right? Now I want to just switch for a minute and go to the next subject, right? The next thing is that we talked about Beaverbrook Farm, and there's a $900,000 expense coming out for that through community preservation.
Yep.
Now, you served on that board.
I did.
With the community preservation and on that Beaverbrook Farm board. I get that they want to put a driveway in and they want to fix it, but doesn't it have a bad look that now you're spending $900,000 on a driveway when you're telling me that you're short money in your budget? I don't care what bucket it's coming out of. I understand that whole thing. I understand the money's there for this purpose. But your average voter sits back and says, they don't even care.
It does look bad, and there's a lot that goes into that people don't understand.
Right.
First off, the town shouldn't have sold the house in the beginning. They sold the house for $100,000. Now it costs $1 million to put a driveway in because they sold the driveway when they sold the house. And they put they put in the deed that they were going to put a new driveway in with a dated timeline that we have to abide by. So that's why we're being forced to do this now, because it's a recorded document.
So it's a self-inflicted wound.
Basically, yeah. So let's sell the house for $100,000 and spend $1 million. The $1 million goes to more than just a driveway. It goes into the parking and the walking trails. It does come out of the CPC funding, which is already spent tax money. Basically, the taxpayers have already put it in. The money's already sitting there for it. But the timing is horrible for it. We will see what the will of the voter is at town meeting when it comes to that. I've been on CPC, I've been on the ad hoc, and I currently sit on the Friends of Beaverbrook Farm, who do a lot of work down at the farm. So I think it's a great project as they have it. I just wish that it was not being presented when it is.
Yeah, exactly. Angel comes up with this thing that the deficit was predicted. Yeah, Angel, it was predicted a month or very shortly after the last election, which is only a year ago in April, when the current chairman of the board was running for re-election, and she was out there with her husband touting how the financial picture in Dracut is great and that we need to keep the town moving forward.
Keep the momentum going.
Keep the momentum going, and because everything is rosy, and then a month later or less, the Economic Development, the Tri-Board that you were a member of, the Tri-Board was told that they're in a serious deficit for next year, this year, and forward. I mean, it was not predicted in a way that was open and transparent. This goes to vision. It goes to what you are projecting as a vision of your town. And the majority of the Board of Selectmen had to know, and the manager had to know. I mean, inflation has been here forever. Don't you figure inflation in on your budget? Do you figure that in at your business, Phil? Your multi-billion-dollar architectural business?
Oh, yeah. It's the state funding that got reduced.
That's all BS. That's all BS. You know that's coming. You know there's when
we have to pay for the illegal immigrants. That
when the economy goes down, the state is dipping. The state is dipping in the taxpayers' pockets, right? Yep. So when you have an $8 billion fund, rainy day fund, that everybody's saying we should dip into that. That's for that state. That's for the state to be able to run the services that the state run, just like your free cash is your safety net, right, Tony? The safety net of Dracut they have a free cash account, right? How much is in that free cash account?
I want to say it's about $4 million, but I never understood free cash to begin with, because free cash was supposed to be for a rainy day, and I don't know how it can be raining any hotter than it is right now. In the past, I've actually said to the town manager, why can't we just dedicate an additional $1 million to the school system towards net school spending and take it out of free cash? I mean, it's there. There were times when we had $12-15 million in free cash. Just give the school department another $1 million. Well, we can't do that.
No, because she needed some other big project.
Well, because it would be used for operating expenses, and that's a no-no for free cash and all that.
That's not true, Tony.
I can tell you that I am very foggy on the spend down of free cash in the very recent past. I don't get it.
Right. Well, she's using it to balance the budget, and she's not telling you that in a lot of ways. By balancing the budget, I mean, if she needs a new piece of equipment, she takes it out of free cash, guised as a one-time expense.
Right. Yeah.
But that saves money from the other accounts that you might have to steal from to buy that account, right? Because that's what you do at home when you buy a new car. or you buy a new
Yeah,
product.
it's called stealing from Peter and paying
Paying
Paul.
Paul. But the bottom line is that you hit the nail on the head. The free cash was at $15 million, and they always tout that the free cash reflects our bond rating. And they're right, because when you go to get a loan for your personal loan, what do they say to you? How much do you have in savings?
For sure.
That's your safety net, right? So they don't want to give you more money than you have to help pay back. And your bond rating will go down or up based on that. Same way with a bank.
And I think the
and
biggest
interest rate.
thing they need to do is they need to go to zero-based budgeting in the town. Because when I ran the recreation program, they would say, tell me a month to go, hey, Gordy, you have $1,400 left in your account. If you don't spend it, it goes to the general fund. You
Right.
better go spend it.
Yeah.
So what would I do is I would go buy supplies for next year, which I didn't really waste it, but I didn't really need to spend it either. So
Yeah. Oh, that's
it's like-
definitely government budgeting for sure.
Right. So if they didn't do all that stuff, and to me, it's wasteful spending. It's not needed spending.
Right.
That happens in every department every year. So go to zero-based budgeting. This is what I need to run my department.
Right.
A, B, C, D, and then anything over, then you put a little bit of flex in there if something comes up, and that's it. If you don't spend it, you get to spend the minimum amount, not what's
Right. So the rainy day fund or your free cash is exactly what it's meant to be for. And that is the bottom line. If when it's raining and you need to use it, you use it to sustain through a bad time, right? Right, Josh?
Correct.
So if your budget reflects a $4 or $5 million in the free cash, and cannabis money is in that free cash waiting to be spent on impact issues, right?
Yeah.
And there are none. If you take that $1.5 or $2 million money out, and eventually that's going back to them, because am I right, Tony? Eventually, cannabis is going to require us to either give it back to them or spend it somewhere.
They're working on it.
Well, that's the subject of other negotiations
Okay.
at this point. So I
Okay.
can't speak to that. But.
All right, but your view, if you've got only $5 million in free cash and two of it is cannabis money, then you really only have $3 million in free cash. And I think the bond ratings they're gonna look at that and they're gonna say, if they knew that was there, that's included in there, and it's not dedicated, then that's an issue.
It is an issue, and when you're buying trucks and things out of free cash, you have to really look at the whole big picture. Could we have financed those trucks and paid a little bit of interest and kept the free cash? Because now we're going to pay more interest on the Campbell School project because we've spent that free cash.
Right.
So every action has a reaction, and you have to really be able to think ahead and look at all these pieces of the puzzle when you're doing it. You can't just go out and buy what you want without looking at what's next down the line.
So the next issue that I want to talk about is that we're in a budget crunch. We've got all these issues with budgets going forward. You're asking people for an override, and now we hear that a farm in Dracut wants to be put under the APR program, and that's the Proper Farm. Proper Farm is out in East Dracut, and they went before the board, your board, back in January, I believe it was, Tony, and John Brox said that he was looking into putting his farm in APR. And APR is a basic, it's protecting the town against development. So
Agricultural preservation.
Go ahead, Phil. Phil said.
So there's a restriction that it can essentially never be developed again. You're giving away or selling the development rights.
So during that meeting, Joe DeRocco gets up and says, well, we should use that for a school. We should buy that and use it for a school, right?
Yeah, out of the blue.
Out of the blue. And so that kind of put the Brox family back a little bit and said, well, maybe I can get more money out of this and just sell the property and the rights to the town with provisions to let me stay on the land. So now he backs off, and all of a sudden you see there's an executive session, and I'm not going to ask Tony any questions on this because it's in executive session, and I don't want anybody to think that Tony's leaking anything because we haven't discussed it with Tony about other than for him to say that's an executive session and I can't talk about it, which is fine. I know that, but it's a fact that the land has been appraised and we know what the land, because he went to APR. So that is out there, and the same meeting you have Ann Vandal say, well, we should buy it for municipal use. And what do you say about that in this particular time, Josh?
Same that we've said about the other things. The timing isn't right for it.
I mean, this is a vision of a person who sees the budget crapping out. Where are you going to get $1 million to pay for that in a budget crunch?
Override.
Well, there you go. It isn't going to stop. It just is not going to stop. And of course, Dave Martin will be in favor of that. Do you want DPW down there? Do you want a building or something down there? How about a cemetery? Because he had wanted to put a cemetery at Beaverbrook Farm, didn't she?
Yeah, I believe so.
So, I mean, we're going to put a cemetery down there?
It looks like a good spot for economic development to me, John.
Yeah, it does.
We have to save some farmland in town. I agree with it, but that particular piece of land is right out on a main road. It's right at the outskirts of town.
It just goes to show to the vision that the town manager and town management has at this point. And I mean, Joe DeRocco throws out about a school, and within seconds you hear from Stephen Stone, the superintendent of school, says, it's too far out east. We can't use that. We're not interested in it. Rob Shepard said the same thing. We're not interested in that. We're right now, they're looking at Campbell School to be redeveloped for the new schools, which brings me to that. And we're running out of time already. We know that there's going to be a proposal in the next 3 years for a new school. Ann Vandal disputes that I said it's $100 million, and she's right. It's not going to be $100 million, Phil.
No, the town has estimated the cost between $100 million and $145 million.
Yeah, so you're talking $150 million on top of the $10 million that you already have, and they're going to say, well, we're going to get 60% from the state. I agree with that, but not in bad times. You don't talk about it during bad times and expect that the people are going to vote for an override for operating expenses and for a school. You're going to lose both projects.
Maybe we wait for possibly getting a new president in the economy to possibly turn around, and then we'll see what
Never going to happen.
That's going to be a discussion for another day. Tony's on the other side of that one. But I hate to say it, Josh, say a couple words.
Yeah, no, I know we're closing out, so I appreciate everybody to watch. Take a look at the website, DracutDeservesBetter.com. Give me a call, 978-631-9936. And I respectfully ask for you to come out and vote Saturday, May 4th. Josh Taylor for Dracut Selectmen. Have a good day.
Thank you, Tony, for joining us today. I think
You're welcome.
It was a very enlightening program.
Pleasure.
Josh, thank you. Yeah. Phil, thank you. Why don't you close out the show?
All right, Dracut, thanks for watching. In our new time, our new place, right here at Dracut Access Television Studios. When it's Saturday, it's 11 a.m. It's What's Happening Dracut. Thank you.
Thank you for watching.